Alright, hello, my name is Billy Kyle. I'm going to do an astrology report for the upcoming week. Today is Thursday, November 11th, 2021, and I want to give a quick synopsis of the different things that we'll be talking about today. So, I'll be talking about quite a few different aspects. I'm going to be talking about a couple of yads that are occurring right now. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Fixed Star KHAMBALIA, as well as the sign Virgo, also the Virgin, and then Astrea, because all three of those kind of like work together and have similar themes. And then I'm going to be talking about the Mayan 13-day period of Deer, which we just started today. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the Mayan, it's called the Burner Day, which happens on November 14th. So that's a point of intensity that we're going to reach. It's kind of like being in a pressure cooker, and then there's a release. And so that's kind of a really important day that's coming up. And then I'll also just be talking about a bunch of different random aspects, including some quintiles, which are some esoteric aspects that are coming up, that are associated kind of like with a Venus or Venusian energy. So jumping right in to this, I just want to note that we just finished the Mayan 13-day period of Jaguar, which culminated yesterday on Wednesday, November 10th, with the Mayan day 13 death. And so that was the period of the divine whirlwind, which culminated in that 13th day of 13 death. And so is deeply about powerful transformation. And in a lot of ways, you may have felt the storm or the intensity or the struggle of going through certain challenges. And some of those challenges may have had to do with loss or letting go or learning to accept the loss of something. And it could also have to do with the challenges of actually intentionally letting go of things. That storm has a lot to do with, we think of just like the basic storm out there, referred to it as the whirlwind. But in a lot of ways, it has to do with that divine whirlwind within us, or that storm within us. So it's the darkness, the troubles, the trials, the tribulations, and just basically the life stuff that happens to us that we have to confront. And it's the whole idea that sometimes people walk away from those things, or they want to avoid those things, and that's very understandable. I mean, who really wants to get caught up in like particular troubles or dramas? Sometimes there's life situations that we just can't escape. And it's those times that we just have to deal with that, whether it's anger, hatred, sadness, fear, the depth of having to go through the loss of something. And on the other side of the spectrum, it's the having to do with the dealing of intentionally weeding out those things in our lives that are troublesome. And so you may have been feeling a little bit of this over the last couple weeks. And I think the point to it is that you intentionally go through that. You intentionally be in that and move through it. Don't suppress, don't deny, and be in it until you completely transcend it is kind of the idea. So moving forward, on November 11th, that's today, which is the Mayan day 1 Deer, we have the moon in Aquarius. So the moon's going to be hanging out in Aquarius for the next few days. And then Mercury and Mars are squaring the moon and Saturn. So this has put an energy in the air of challenge, how we feel and how we want to move forward with our feelings, but the walls that we're kind of running up against, or the challenges that are getting in the way. I've said this before many times, Saturn is the great spiritualizing planet, because Saturn tests us and wants us to get it right before we move forward. So this is, with that Mercury conjunct Mars, and that's a whole thing we'll be talking about too. It's just, we're getting into alignment between our mind, whether it's our lower mind or our higher mind, and the action, the Martian-like action of being able to move forward. So we're getting ready to go ahead and like take action and move forward, and we're getting our mind and our actions in alignment, which is really important. But it's square to that moon, which is conjunct Saturn over in Aquarius, and a lot of that has to do with the collective, but it's getting our mind and our actions that we want to take in alignment, and basically double checking, getting everything right. We cannot move forward in a superficial way is the idea. We want to be able to move forward in a completely authentic, transparent, unique, original way. It's not about moving forward in a false or superficial way. So it's really about getting all these things in alignment in a very specific and well done manner before moving forward. So we want to, align ourselves with our feelings in that so that we can move forward. And you don't want to get discouraged by these challenges or things if things aren't just lining up. It just means that you need to be within those challenges and sit with it, be quiet with it, and see how you can really align yourself. Like, this needs to be taken care of. Oh, I have to take care of that. Oh, I have to make sure this is done correctly, or this needs to be done a little bit better. That kind of vibe. So we got these two yods. I'll put them up here on the screen. We have these two yods that are happening at the same time, and they interconnect, and it creates a bit of an isosceles trapezoid. So it's a little bit of a basket or a bucket kind of shape geometry. So we have Mercury and Mars and Scorpio as the point. And then we have Ceres and Black Moon Lilith in Gemini. And then we have Chiron in Aries. And this particular yod goes until the 15th. Okay, so we'll look at that. And then we have Ceres and Black Moon Lilith as the point of the other yod. And then we have Mercury and Mars and Astrea in Capricorn. And this particular yod goes until the 23rd, if you can see that. So the yods are sextile. And then you got the green lines there. So each of those is a yod, and it's it's referred to loosely in astrology as the finger of God. Well, here we have two fingers of God, whatever, however you want to process that in your mind. But it basically just denotes that this is a very active, very intense, very divine, very powerful kind of energy. So let's look at this for a second. So we have, let's look at the Astrea. Astrea, or, Astrea is the torch-wielding star maiden, and she comes in as the virgin goddess of justice. She has a lot to do with justice, innocence, purity, and holding the scales of justice and carrying the thunderbolts of Zeus. That's kind of her things that she did in some of the myths or the stories of herself. So we want to look at innocence, purity, and justice. And in a minute, we'll look at another attribute of hers. So Astrea is associated with Virgo and the Virgin, or Mary, the Virgin Mary. And so I've talked about that in some of my previous reports. I think if you want to look back to a previous report, I think it was the Cancer full moon report, maybe. But I talked a lot about the, or maybe it was a different report. I'm not sure. I'll put some links up in the initial screen, but it's that indwelling. Mary was that energy, that mothering energy that carried the Christ principle, which is basically, all religion aside and the distortions of Christianity, which is very different than Christ or the Christ. It's an energy basically of love and wisdom. And the second ray in the esoteric literature, so the second ray of love and wisdom. And so this energy has to do with fostering, it's that mothering womb energy, okay, which is carrying the child kind of theme. And so Astrea reigned on Earth during the Golden Age, and she was disgusted by humanity's descent into ignorance and corruption. She chose to essentially leave the earth because of this. So she was the last goddess or one of the gods to leave the earth when we went into the time of the Iron Age. And so that has a very powerful theme to it. She was born from the gods dusk and dawn. I forget their name at the moment, but they basically translate to the dusk and the dawn. So there's an element of twilight, and there's an element of transition, which is a very powerful time. You know, twilight denotes the time where the veil is thin between the worlds. It's that mysterious time between light and darkness. And one day, it is said that she will return along with the utopian golden age that comes, you know, further down the road in the future. So we can, Astrea can represent what is essentially hard to let go of. So I suppose there's a little bit of a scorpionic energy. We have some planets in Scorpio right now. We have that Mars conjunct Mercury in Scorpio. And so it's that energy of, or it's that theme of what is hard to let go of. We just talked about that at the beginning of this report. What is unnecessary? You know, the sign Virgo has to do with purification, or the weeding out of the garden, or you know, separating that which is useful from that which is not. We see that in our own digestive system, in our bodies. We see that on the earth with the element of water. Water purifies and cleanses. It moves things. It not only cleanses and moves things, but it also disseminates and distributes. So, you know, water is a key element of bringing things to life. Water is associated with love. So there is no life without water. There is no life without love. And in a lot of ways, you know, we can associate love and water with the arts and music as well. In a lot of ways, there is no life without the arts and music. So it's kind of what makes the world move, and you know, it brings voice and expression. Love, art, and water, they all bring expression to the current times, the worlds that we live in. So there's a bunch of different connections there. I want to note that she also can have to do with humility and humbleness. So those are things, those are parts of the path that we have to move through. It's kind of a taming of the ego. It's a taming of the personality as it becomes more integrated with the soul, that we have to come into elements of humbling ourselves, of coming into humility. And that, by that, I definitely do not mean lowering yourself or placing yourself beneath or below someone else or something else. It's very important. You know, you have to root and ground yourself in the idea that you are no greater than anyone else, but no one else is any greater than you, kind of thing. I mean, there's equality with this approach, but humbleness has to do with well, it has to do with compassion, but it's the recognition of the other, and it also has to do with the letting go of the lower qualities, the lower Martian qualities, which can be asserting oneself without thinking of the other, or against the other, or despite the suffering of the other. So, you know, humbleness and humility go hand in hand with taking greater actions to help the world and help others, while not lowering ourselves, while not dismissing ourselves, which is a theme of the old Piscean age, you know, to martyr oneself or to give oneself up in the name of something else. So this is not necessarily, you know, giving oneself up. You know, Astrea left the earth. She didn't really, in a way there's an abandonment, but I see it as sort of like it's a signal that we go through cycles, and you know, we're moving through what is it, the Bronze Age right now, according to those cycles. And we'll eventually work our way back up into the golden age, the silver age and then the golden age. So where am I going with this? This is, I just want to note that right now can have to do with a time of being humble or humility, not enforcing one's perspectives or actions upon others without thinking first and aligning with your higher mind. So sometimes we think that what we think or what we know is so much greater or more important than what somebody else may know, or what other wisdom they may know. And the truth is that everybody holds a piece of the truth. Nobody has the complete truth. So we want to think about Astrea has the Thunderbolt of Zeus. So it's kind of like right now can be like a time of a thunderbolt straight to the heart of the system. We have that Saturn in Aquarius, and we have Mars and Mercury making a quintile to Pluto, and then Pluto's making a quintile to Chiron. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But right now what I'm talking about is this connection between Mars, Mercury, Astrea, Chiron. And then there's also a little bit of, I'd say, a connection to Saturn there, whereas, Saturn in Aquarius has to do with the system, groups of people. So this could bring up something in the world that has to do, it's kind of like a thunderbolt to the heart of the system. And when we think about that, it's kind of like, the idea of, electricity can stop the heart. I think of, in a way, when a person sneezes in a violent kind of way, that, it can actually like stop the heart. So the electricity of that, it kind of puts a glitch in the signal. I'm going to come back to the idea of glitches in signals and communications here in a minute when we talk about the Mayan 13-day period of Deer. But there's also the idea that electricity or that lightning bolt can jump start the heart. It's kind of like they have to jump start somebody's heart in emergency situations. But it's bringing that heart energy back to life, or it's giving it like a surge. I don't know. I kind of think, what's that scene from Pulp Fiction when they have to jab the needle into her heart? That doesn't really have to do with electricity, but I guess in a way we can say that the chemicals that were injected create sort of an electric spark that, brings her back to life. So it's the jump starting that heart energy. And I think that's really beautiful because that's exactly kind of what we need right now, is we need more of that heart energy coming back to life and getting really involved with the expression of that which we're really aligned with in our heart. Not just arguing with people or bickering with people or disagreement with people. That's why Astrea left the Earth. I see, and I'm going to follow up some research to this, whether it pans out or not. I kind of see some connections between Astrea and Eris. So it's almost as if, it's kind of like we have triplicity goddesses in a lot of ways, like Hecate, and but I kind of see this as sort of possibly a triplicity or duplicity, but Astrea and Eris. So Astrea left the Earth with the oncoming of the Iron Age, and that's sort of the time when a goddess like Eris sort of reigns free. And we're dealing with a lot of Eris energy right now with this last couple of years, which I've talked about in other reports. But essentially, it's kind of it's coming back into the recognition of our higher energies. I'm kind of like trailing into a couple different tangents here. So I want to jump back on, but it's the jump starting of that heart system, not only in ourselves, but in the collective. So very necessary right now. And then it's also diving into the depths and cleansing of the nucleus, the center, the deepest parts of ourselves. So, we jumpstart the heart. The heart pumps the blood out into, the periphery through the circulation system. Aquarius is the circulation system. So if we're jump starting that heart right now, it's all about the carrying of that newly charged, electrified blood, that blood which is like just supercharged with life, into the system for the benefit of the many, for the benefit of all. And so we may see some positive developments in that sense, and that's kind of where I'll put my focus with that. So Virgo, the Virgin, and Astrea can have to do with secret knowledge and the labyrinth, as we work our way through the darkness, through the labyrinths of the world and through ourselves. I kind of talked a little bit about that in the beginning of this, the idea of the storm. We have to kind of like move through these labyrinths where there's like secret doors, and like, the path changes, and it, becomes obscure in all directions, and like the pathway change, so it's really interesting right now going through all these things and discovering new information. And it's really important that while we do this, we keep our connection to spirit, to the higher mind, and I'll come back to this in a little bit, but it's that third eye which actually helps guide us through this, so that we can rightly differentiate the forms of life and that which lies hidden beneath or within the forms of life, which actually are the source of the animation of that life. And it's important, I think, that we stay connected to that, because that's, our true source. That's what gives us trust. That's what gives us guidance. That's what gives us the vision to move forward despite the illusions of what we see. It's kind of like when it's like cold and gray and raining for like 2 weeks straight. Well, a lot of people can get lost in that. In fact, up in the northern parts of the globe, like Alaska and probably Russia and all the areas where it snows a lot and it's very dark and there's quite a bit less sunlight during the winter. It's called seasonal affective disorder, SAD. And that's a real thing. It contributes to depression, suicide, and all that stuff. So it's like when we're going through this stuff, we don't want to get lost in the illusion of that. And a lot of times that illusion can be contributed to us identifying way too deeply with our feeling, with our astral nature. And so it's important to have that third eye as a reminder. That third eye acts as a balancing point between, the duality of ourselves. So, in conjunction with our emotions. So it's really important because it helps us actually guide our way through it. My point was, it's like when you have, that external circumstance and you're sort of in the story of that external circumstance. Let's just say it's cloudy and rainy for 2 weeks, or maybe you're actually in the northern hemisphere in Russia or Alaska or whatever, and you have to live through 7 or 8 months of extreme darkness and cold. Well, it's the idea of just simply remembering that behind the clouds there is the sun, there's the sunshine. At a certain point in the cycle, the warmer weather comes back. And so it's just the little things that you can do to remind yourself as you go through the process, not lose yourself in it, not repress it, but actually be in it. And right now, I think that's really important because it's in the northern part of the globe. We're actually going into the winter. So we kind of have to deal with that darkness and go into it. So at the time, with this Mercury-Mars point of this yod, it's fixed. It's conjunct the fixed star KHAMBALIA, which once again has to do with the Virgo, the Virgin, and Astrea. So KHAMBALIA is a star in that constellation of Astrea. So secret knowledge in the labyrinth, the connection to wine and the spirits. So alcohol. We could talk about that all day as far as, that's why they call it spirits, because it, alcohol kind of breaks us down biologically. Like once it goes right into the system, it dissolves. And so there's a connection between Neptune and spirit and alcohol. And, that's why alcohol can like dissolve certain things. I don't know. looking at like paints and such like that, it's kind of like how soap helps dissolve the oils, but it's that dissolving element, and we can lose ourselves in it. But sometimes, like I said at the beginning of this report, we need to intentionally dissolve things in our life that we know are not working, so that we can move forward. So I think of the Latin phrase "in vino veritas," which is there is truth in the wine, or there's truth in the spirits. And that's why a lot of people drink. I think it's because it's a quick yet artificial way of connecting us with spirit, which is actually so important. And most people, especially if they're not connected, to anything spiritual, or they don't believe in anything spiritual, there's an unconscious motivation or tendency or obsession, because underneath it all, that's like actually the true cause of wanting to connect with spirit on a deeper source. So what it's, those alcohols are in a way being used to help dissolve the busyness of the mind, to create a silence or a more clear path and connection to spirit. In the esoteric literature, that's referred to, that connection between us and our physical incarnation and spirit is called the antakarana. It's the bridge which connects the two. And it's really important because throughout our lives, what we're doing is each one of us, whether you're conscious or not of it, we are clearing that connection. We're forging that connection when we're building that bridge between here and source and spirit. That's a topic in itself, but I wanted to bring that up because that can be something that's occurring right now with some of these aspects, these really powerful aspects. Circumstances may occur that bring these themes up and allow you or force you to actually clear that connection with your antakarana, with the bridge between you and source. So whether you're conscious of it or not, the point is that you actually want to be very conscious of it. You want to be intentional of it, so that circumstances aren't just happening to you and forcing you into situations where you kind of have to wake up. So with this, there's also the idea of penetration into hidden secrets, which is a little bit of what we're talking about. And this star, KHAMBALIA, is in the left foot of the Virgo, or Astrea. So we, in a sense, must be aware of each step, as many times the feet have their own ideas and they seek their own kingdom and destination. It makes me think of castles made of sand fall in the sea eventually. And that's kind of where we get lost a little bit, in the idea that our feet get carried away, our motivations and our ambitions get carried away. Even if you're, spiritual and you're a seeker and you're on the path, it's not about getting carried away with goals and destinations. Simply being on the path is enough. And I guess the idea with that is a lot of times people can get confused or lost in the Maya, or the illusion of, if I achieve this goal, if I go out here, if I do this thing, if I, make this record, if I make this discovery, if I have, these many friends, or this powerful, lover, power couple thing, or if I have, people get lost in so many things that are like their ego personality. And it's the idea that the path really is an inward path. It's not about achieving outward. In fact, the inward path is what it's really all about. Everything that happens outwardly in circumstance is simply a unfolding. It's a blossoming. It's a reflection of your state inwardly. And that inward state can't be forced, and it can't be, superficial. And it can't be achieved in the same kind of way that we approach, trying to be like the CEO of a corporation, or, something great, or, powerful. Those are ideas that are, planetary power consciousness that we've already peaked, and we're trying to transcend right now. So I'm going on a lot of tangents here today. But yeah, castles made of sand fall in the sea eventually. Y'all know who that lyric's from, I'm sure. So Astrea can also have to do with precision. And when we look up precision in the root word, the etymological root word of precision, it has to do with a cutting off mentally. So it's a cutting out, it's a cultivation, or a letting go of, or cutting off mentally in our mental field. So we have that Mercury conjunct Mars, and it's making a few interesting aspects. So it's cutting off mentally and a freedom from inessential elements. That's what we talked about with that Astrea Virgo stuff. So it's quite fascinating, really. The other yod is Ceres and Black Moon Lilith as the point, and it's conjunct the fixed star of Ain, A-I-N. Hope I said that right. So, and this fixed star is actually the bull's eye of Taurus, which is very significant. That's where the term bullseye comes from. And it's it's termed Oculus Boreas, the northern eye. And that northern actually has to do with the northern winds. That's Boreas, that's associated in myth. So the northern winds, or the eye of the northern winds. And so a lot of this again has to do with the third eye of vision. It's that Vishnu energy. And this energy can not only help us see and guide our way through the darkness and the labyrinth, but it also has a destroying quality that can cut away. And so once again, that's that precision, a cutting off mentally. So it's to cut out, it's where you actually have to engage the will. I don't know how many of you, if you sit down to meditate, or you can do it anytime. It's just simply challenge yourself to see, can you focus on one particular thing or subject? Most people can't for more than 3 or 4 seconds, let alone minutes, without your mind going here and there to, whether you're distracted by outward circumstances or whether you're actually distracted by other thoughts, random thoughts that are happening in your mind. So it's kind of like we have to find that willpower and that focus, that laser beam focus, so that we don't get pulled out of our anchored position that we want to actually be in. So with this other yod, that Ceres and Black Moon Lilith as the point, fixed the star Ein, the bullseye, Oculus northern eye. Ein means also the source of water or well. So that that invites us, with this yod, with Black Moon Lilith and Ceres as the point, is to go deep into our own inner nature, our own inner. Ceres represents the mother. She's kind of that mother of agriculture. She's tied to the story of the seasons. And then we have the Black Moon Lilith. That's powerful feminine energy. That can be where we're either denied or denying ourselves and our power. It's connected to Astrea, and then it's connected to Mercury and Mars and Scorpio. I think it just really says, it's a time to really go deep. It's the vortex of the, it's kind of like a water vortex. If you get caught in it, you just have to allow yourself to just go all the way to the bottom before it spits you out, kind of thing. So let's jump into the Mayan 13-day period of Deer, which starts on November 11th, that's today, and it goes until November 23rd. So if we look at the progression during this 13-day period, there's 4 Dog, which I'm going to talk about in a second, 7 Reed, so that's the middle point, and that can have to do with authority, being very strong yet possibly rigid. 9 Eagle has to do, that's liberty, that's transformation. 11 Quake, or earthquake, or movement. So this period, the Mayan 13-day period of Deer, is all about movement in a particular way. And then it balances out on the 11th day with Quake, or earthquake. And so that is also about movement. It's inward movement that triggers the blossoming of outward movement or rearrangement. And then it culminates on the final 13th day of 13 rain, and so that also has to do with that can have to do with, well, it's creativity for one, and it's vertical waters, but it also has to do with communication or glitches in communication. So, all right, moving forward. So we have right now during the period of time starting today, we have Moon in Pisces, and then this has to do with movements, patterns, routines. It can have to do with the hunt. The magic of not doing or non-doing. So, we could talk about that for quite a while. It can have to do with the hunter and the hunted. And this is the idea that it's even better to hunt oneself. So when I talked about the art of not doing, that comes from Carlos Castaneda's ideas, and he referred to it as there were different arts that one could cultivate. One was dreaming. That was one of the main ones. One of the other main ones was the art of stalking, and that doesn't have to do with like creepy stalking somebody or something. It's more of kind of like a hunting, but it actually was attributed more to the hunting of oneself. So you become the hunter of yourself as you try to align with soul quality. You learn to hunt your personality and the aspects of it that can be flaws or weaknesses or glamours. And so that this is a great period for doing it. And I would say that this period, even though there's no real strong retrogrades going on right now that we would talk about astrologically, it's going to bring up a feeling or a similarity of a retrograde period, especially as we lead up to this eclipse, which I'll talk about in the next report. But many people may experience, things coming up from the past, feelings coming up from the past, thoughts and ideas coming up from the past, in a very retrograde period. So it's a great time to stalk oneself, to review your habits, review your addictions, review your inclinations, to make the unconscious, or that which you are unconscious of, more conscious, and bring it into the light, even if it's extremely uncomfortable. And that's the idea, like I said in the beginning of this report, of the storm, of that divine whirlwind, of the uncomfortable. It's because that storm is actually intimately connected to the process of creativity. It's those vertical rains and those winds. I mentioned those northern winds, which bring everybody knows how storms can be completely chaotic and create glitches in communication. Well, this brings that up, and it can also bring up like things are way too excessive or there's not enough, like feast or famine. And so that can, bring up pain, that can bring up uncomfortableness. But the idea is to just go through it because it's intimately connected to creativity. After the storm is when there's a breath of fresh air. It's when the air is cleansed. It's when the earth is cleansed. That's where the flower can actually spring out of the earth and bloom. The animals come back out, we go back out. And so, it's a cleansing of our spirit in a way. And I think that's really important. Going on a couple tangents today, but yeah, it's a time to move through those energies and allow that storm to just occur and take its course, and then come out of it, and then it's like tend to your creativity. Don't get lost in the storm kind of thing. So this 13-day period of Deer is ruled by Tepe-Yolotel, who is really a disguised Tezcatlipoca hiding in a jaguar hide, and is associated with the jaguar and nighttime, as well as the heart of the mountain. I'd love to tell you guys right now the story of the blue deer, but it's just too long for this report, and I'll talk about it in another report here pretty soon, probably the next report. But it brings up the idea of the heart of the mountain. And this Lord is also the Lord of earthquakes. So right now can be a time of moving and shaking. It's, I don't really want to lean into predictions of earthquakes because those are bad for people. And we want to actually envision and create that those don't happen. But it's the idea that these things occur, and I've noticed through studies that Earth movement in relation to the sun and solar flares and so forth, there's connections that they usually happen on particular days or within 13-day periods. And this is a 13-day period where things can really move and kind of shake. So I wanted to note, like I said in the beginning, Deer, which the 13-day period we're in is actually, that represents the complementary polar opposite of the Mayan day quake or movement. And so during this particular time, the possible days of Earth movement can be on the 11th. That's today. I don't know if anything's happened today because I haven't checked, but the 17th, which is the Mayan day 7 read, which is also the same day that Mars is opposite Uranus. Could happen on the 21st on the Mayan day 11 quake, and then possibly on the 23rd, which is the Mayan day 13 rain. But esoterically is even possibly more important than that, is that it has to do with the movement of like inward movement. So it's that inward authority that we essentially have to align with and be flexible with. But it can create movement, it's like we want the movement, we think about a reed in the wind. It's very flexible, but it doesn't break. We think about the inward movement where we can actually rearrange our emotions or ideas about something and not succumb to the darker qualities, like we mentioned, depression or negative thinking about ourselves or others. So that's really important. On November 12th, it's the Mayan day 2 rabbit. We have the Sun trine Neptune. That can be a very positive day where there's connection to spirit, but it can also be a day where it's very challenging, where people, there can have that depressive quality where people kind of get lost in the Maya or the illusions that they're dealing with. November 13th, the Mayan day 3 water, we have Mercury opposite Uranus. That's a very insightful day. I can see that being a very insightful day that brings up more of that retrograde quality. Uranus is said to be the higher octave of Mercury. So we can have some really strong, deep, cathartic insights that day or around that time. And then I have a chart really quick. So quintiles. And this quintile chart goes from November 13th till the 23rd. So this particular energy can hang around between that period of time. And we have Mars and Mercury in Scorpio, quintile to Pluto, which is making a quintile to Chiron, and then there's a biquintile between Chiron and the Mercury and the Mars. So I see that as a really potent time for aligning with mind and taking action. But it's also a time where we can mistake, I talked about the path earlier, getting lost in outward goals, because Pluto can have to do with that unrelenting, Plutonian force, that willpower to move forward, and that can come across as obsession. But, we have the Chiron in Aries and the healing of the wounded masculine and the learning and the education of new ways that the masculine can actually present itself. So, there's a very strong magical quality here in this chart. I see it as a great possibility for healthy development and higher points of view towards things that are going on in the world. But in another way, for a different group of people, it can actually be more obsession and taking action as a result of defensiveness. And hopefully, we see more of the former than the latter in this. November 14th, that's an intense day. November 14th is the Mayan day for dog, and that's basically a collective burner day in the Mayan calendar. On that day, the moon conjuncts Neptune and then moves into Aries, and then Juno moves into Capricorn. But, this particular day is kind of like a pressure cooker day. It's a day where the collective energies are released, and dog can have to do with just, I think of the human, all too human, the utmost in-depth aspects of humanity. Humanity is a force or a place where different forces meet. And, if you look at us, it's in a physical way. It's also a point where the animal, meets the human, or the attributes of the human, which are the higher aspects of, intelligence, science, art, and so on. So, that could be a really uncomfortable day. Usually something big makes the news the day before, the day over, the day after. So we're looking at November 13th, 14th, or 15th. And then on November 15th, we got Venus square Chiron and the moon. So, I could see this as, blossoming or developing as something that has to do with the feminine, that has to do with harmony, and the wound that's involved, what we're feeling in conjunction with that. Venus in Capricorn is, it's not really, fucking around or playing any games. It's very goal-oriented, kind of like I talked about in the beginning of this. So I think the idea is to turn that energy inward, which basically says that we get in alignment with our true values and get real with those values, and then they are expressed outwardly, instead of trying to take our values and project them onto others. So a strong day where something can really ignite or be expressed or come to realization for the collective between the 13th, 14th, 15th. And so anyway, that's the report for now. Much love, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.